Welcome to the Consumer Finance Podcast. I'm Chris Willis, the co-leader of Troutman Pepper Locke's Consumer Financial Services regulatory practice. And today we're going to be giving you a preview of our Year in Review and Look Ahead publication and podcast series, which is coming to you soon. Before we do that, though, let me remind you to visit and subscribe to our blogs, troutmanfinancialservices.com and consumerfinancialserviceslawmonitor.com. And don't forget about our other podcasts, the FCRA Focus, Crypto Exchange, Unauthorized Access, which is our privacy and data security podcast, Payments Pros, and our auto finance podcast called Moving the Metal. And all those are available on all popular podcast platforms. And speaking of those podcast platforms, if you like this podcast, let us know. Leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice and let us know how we're doing. Now, as I said, today we're going to be talking about our annual Year in Review and Look Ahead publication, which is one of the signature things that we create as a consumer financial services practice group here at Troutman Pepper Locke. And joining me to talk about that is our practice group leader, Michael Lacy. Michael, thanks for being on the show again today.
Great to be back, Chris.
So for those people in our audience who might not have seen our Year in Review and Look Ahead publication before, can you take just a minute to describe, what is it? When somebody sits down and reads it, what will they see?
This is our 8th edition of a Year in Review and Look Ahead. And in short, we cover 17 areas or topics in the consumer protection space, ranging from the Fair Credit Reporting Act to the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, student lending, FinTech, tribal lending, mortgage, all of the topics that we deal with day in and day out. And the point of the publication is really twofold. One is to do a high-level recap of the important developments in each of those areas over the past year, and also share with our readers a look ahead in terms of the issues, cases, and the like that we think will be important, not only in 2025, but beyond then.
And the format of it, I know we really do take account of the fact that people don't have time to read some giant long document. And so I'd love for you to talk to the audience about how we've made sure that the content is really concise and accessible.
Yeah, great point, Chris. That we've learned over the 8 years of doing this that being dense and writing law review articles is sometimes not the best way to have our readers digest the information we're trying to provide to them. So I hope the readers will continue to see this iteration of the Year in Review is more concise, perhaps more high level, but perhaps most importantly, we're also using other digital mediums to allow folks to get the insight that we're providing in the written publication. And by that, I mean, we're rolling out various podcasts about some of these topics that are included in our Year in Review written work product. And we also have scheduled webinars on some of the topics as well. So you'll be able to not only get the written Year in Review, but also listen to podcasts and participate in webinars that we have scheduled.
What would you say is the right audience for the Year in Review and Look Ahead publication? Who's it intended to be helpful to?
Well, certainly the clients we serve day in and day out. I know a lot of our clients look forward to receiving the Year in Review and use it somewhat of a desk book or a guidebook and keep it handy, but also other practitioners in the space. Obviously, we work a lot with colleagues around the country, and those folks who are litigating some of these cases or dealing with some of these regulatory issues, and we often hear from them about our Year in Review and get feedback, which we always love. So it's really anyone who operates in these consumer protection spaces, whether it be clients, whether it be other practitioners, and even regulators for that matter.
Well, and I think even within a financial services company's employees, people in legal are obviously a very important audience who I think the document would be helpful to. But I think it's also helpful for compliance professionals, risk folks, and even business leaders, because it's written in a way in ordinary language that everybody can understand and appreciate what we're saying in it.
I would agree. And that's one of the focuses of how we've evolved in our Year in Review and how we put these summaries together for non-lawyers to be able to pick it up and sort of understand the big ticket issues that they need to be concerned about, not only from what happened over the past 12 months, but what should be on their radar on a go-forward basis.
Yeah, so I think if any of our listeners download the report, they should remember that when they've got it, sharing is caring when it comes to that report. And I think sharing it within their organization could be helpful to a lot of people. So we'd encourage them to do that. So Michael, when is the publication due out and how can folks get their hands on it?
The publication is slated to go out the last week of January, so in a couple of weeks now. Some of the podcasts that are associated with the Year in Review will already have gone out or been made public before then, and that's just due to some timing issues. but also you can access it on our firm website, troutman.com, as well as on our blogs that you mentioned earlier. And so it's available any sort of way. And of course, you can email myself or you, Chris, or anybody else in the Consumer Financial Services Practice Group, and we'll be happy to send out the electronic copy.
This is a project that I can just say from my own personal involvement, because I co-lead one of the chapters on it for UDAP and Fair Lending. It's something that the partners in our group take very seriously and really enjoy doing. And they put their sort of best thoughts together about what important happened in the last year and what do we expect in the coming year. And I think it's really valuable insight. I enjoy reading the whole publication, and I know that a lot of our clients will as well.
Couldn't agree more with you, Chris. I also think it's a great opportunity for our practitioners to take a step back. We're busy servicing our clients throughout the year, but take a step back and try to get a holistic approach of what's happened and what's going to happen. And it really sets us up to be able to advise our clients in 2025 and beyond. So it's just a great exercise all the way around.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today to tell everybody about this. And to the members of our audience, thanks for listening today. And of course, do take a look at the publication when it comes out and keep your podcast feed tuned to this and our other podcasts to see the related episodes as they come out over the course of January and February. And don't forget to visit and subscribe to our blogs, troutmanfinancialservices.com and consumerfinancialserviceslawmonitor.com. And while you're at it, why not head over and visit us on the web at troutman.com. We've got a Consumer Financial Services email list that you can put your name on. And that way we can send you copies of the various alerts and advisories that we send out, as well as invitations to the industry-only webinars like the ones Michael said we were scheduling on the Year in Review document. And of course, stay tuned for a great new episode of this podcast every Thursday afternoon. Thank you all for listening.
Copyright Troutman Pepper Locke, LLP. These recorded materials are designed for educational purposes only. This podcast is not legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individual participants. Troutman does not make any representations or warranties, expressed or implied, regarding the contents of this podcast. Information on previous case results does not guarantee a similar future result. Users of this podcast may save and use the podcast only for personal or other non-commercial educational purposes. No other use, including without limitation, reproduction, retransmission, or editing of this podcast may be made without the prior written permission of Troutman Pepper Locke. If you have any questions, please contact us at troutman.com.